I'm Nikki Hardeman, and I'm glad you're joining us for Study at Faith Element. I'm here to provide you with some background information on your biblical passage for today. The text for this week is Luke 13, 1 through 9. In this passage, Jesus refers to two events that were probably familiar to Jesus' audience. And then he tells a parable about a fig tree that was not bearing fruit. As Jesus was talking to a group of people that day, he refers to two instances of tragedy that were likely a common topic of conversation around the water cooler. While we have no other record of these events, we can understand something of what was happening based on what we already know about the times in which Jesus lived. In the first event, it seems that Pilate, who was known for his brutality, slaughtered a group of Galilean pilgrims who were making their sacrifices in the temple. In the second event, it seems that a structure in Jerusalem called the Tower of Siloam, maybe a tower in the wall around the city, collapsed and killed 18 people. Maybe construction workers, though we don't know. In the wake of these two events, the crowd seemed to conclude that the victims' fate were of their own doing, that in some way, by their own sin and disobedience, they brought about their own deaths. This was a popular theology of Jesus' day, and it still has a large following today. However, Jesus says this kind of thinking is wrong. The Galileans were not massacred in the temple because of anything they did to deserve it. It happened because Pilate was a brutal leader, and he was known for using fear to maintain control. Likewise, the 18 who were killed in the accident were not worse sinners than anyone who might have survived it. Jesus wants the people to know that bad things don't simply happen to bad people. Life is fragile, and hard things happen in life. It doesn't mean that the person they happen to is a worse person than anybody else. God does not make bad things happen to people to punish them. Rather, God is the one who we turn to for comfort and assurance when tragedies like this happen in our lives. Following this teaching, Jesus goes on to tell a parable about a fig tree that didn't bear fruit for 3 years. The owner of the tree told the gardener to cut the tree down because it was no good. The gardener pled with the owner of the tree to let him fertilize the tree and give it 1 more year to bear fruit. Both the delight and the frustration of Jesus' parables is that we do not always know who represents who in the stories. In this particular story, some have suggested that the owner of the tree is God and that Jesus is the gardener. Others have suggested that the owner of the tree is the people or the forces in the world that would seek to destroy, and we are the gardener who is looking to preserve that which might be destroyed. Still, another way to consider this parable is that the tree owner is God, and we are the gardener who is asking for 1 more year for the tree to bear fruit. In this case, we find ourselves being called to offer more grace and patience than we may even perceive that God gives. Now, I know what you're thinking. But don't hear me saying that God does not give or have infinite amounts of grace for us. Rather, this is an acknowledgement that there are times when we can perceive that it's time to give up on somebody else, and then we project our beliefs about that person onto God. The ultimate lesson in this is that we don't know what God is doing when it comes to the judgment and forgiveness of other people. We are only able to control how we respond to other people in this world. And this parable tells us that we should respond to the world and the people in it with relentless grace. It is a call to err on the side of grace. Even when we may perceive or feel like God has given up on somebody else, we are called to patience and love. May we one day be judged for having loved too much rather than not enough.